What is up, guys? I got another exciting announcement. I just picked the winner for the orange camo Bell MX-9. That is going to John Maloney. But I got some more exciting news. I got a second Bell MX-9 in a even cooler color. In my opinion, this is the kind of purple, I don't know if it's camo, but the purple color. As you can see, awesome. Same thing, brand new, never used, size large. All you got to do is subscribe if you want to win it. I'm going to announce the winner in a month, send it to your house free of charge. Also, I got a brand new, never used 1-up chain guide. Once again, never used, really tidy and simple and lightweight. I just already have one, so I don't need it. All you got to do is subscribe. I'm going to pick the winner for this probably in a couple weeks. Notify you, ship it to your house. I appreciate you guys tuning in. This is a way for me to show thanks. And anyways, on to the video. What's up, guys? Hardline is in a few hours. I'm in the US, so it's actually at night, ironically, at 10 o'clock. But I figured it would be a good time to discuss why I believe there is still one remaining box to be checked for the fan favorite Bernard Kerr. He has won everything there is to win except a World Cup. So for those of you in the sport, you're already well aware, but the World Cup sort of UCI series in downhill is the creme de la creme. It is the most competitive. It is the race that everybody shows up at, and unlike even Hardline, as prestigious as it is, and don't get me wrong, it is, the one argument is that not every rider is there. So even if you win it, it's not quite the same level of sort of significance, at least within the sport. Outside the sport, it feels like it gets as much publicity. But for the mountain bike sort of fans, the World Cup really demonstrates that you are indeed the fastest rider on the planet at that track on that given day. And Bernard Kerr has yet to sort of check that box. And today's video is about what I believe he could do differently to really put him into a position to where he can very likely win a World Cup. Not to say that he's not already capable of it, but I believe there is a pretty clear and pretty obvious reason as to why he is kind of on the back foot in regards to his competitors such as Loic Bruni, Amaury Pierron, and even Jackson Goldstone. And that starts with this. I love Bernard Kerr. He is one of the hardest working people in the sport. He is not only an elite world-class racer, he also is pretty much single-handedly responsible for creating the pivot team. I remember all the way back in 2013, Val de Sol, he was very sort of early on in his mountain bike developmental career. He was very sort of relatively unknown. And I remember Rob Warner talking about this young hotshot sort of BMX dirt jumper. This was the first time I remember seeing him make the live stream for the finals. I just remember him even at that time, what is that, 10 plus years ago, on the pivot. I don't even believe it was a team then. It was pretty much him just doing his thing. But it is cool to see where the pivot squad is at now. Contrast to pretty much every other team, this is almost entirely down to his work, his dedication, his hustle. He is still really hands-on with everything in the sort of team. And as we know, traveling around the world racing bikes takes a lot of work, from sort of the logistical side to the money, to the sponsors, to hotel arrangements, etc., pit setup. And this gets into what I believe is continuing to be a strategic hurdle for Bernard Kerr, and that is, has too many jobs. He is working too hard, and specifically too hard in relation to his competition. So I'm going to tell not a story, but an interesting little insight into how his competitors are approaching it in relation to him. So Loic Bruni, not only is he on arguably the best factory downhill team, everything is provided for, the cooking, the bike prep, the pit setup, everything. He also travels around to the races with, I believe, 2 or 3 individuals. And while I don't necessarily know what their exact title is or how like they get paid from Specialized, they are pretty much his dedicated line spotters. So Loic Bruni on a World Cup weekend will have at least 3, if not more, individuals just scoping out the track, watching riders, watching lines and relaying to him what is happening. And he travels around to each World Cup with, I believe it is 2 or 3, and they might have other duties that I'm not aware of. But from what I've seen, mostly they are focused on scoping the track out. And this is in addition to every other box that is checked for an athlete like Loic Bruni, but also Amaury Pierron, Ronan Dunn, Jackson Goldstone. These riders are on sort of tip of the spear factory teams. Everything you could want is provided for. All they got to do is show up, get into their mojo, and go and perform. Well, this is not the case with Bernard Kerr because he is such a hardworking and has that kind of high output mentality. He is hands-on from everything from, like I said, pit setup, cooking, sponsorship dollars, hotel booking. And when you get to the elite level, heck, not even the elite level, when you start to get to even any decently high level in a sport, these things add up. And even if the accumulated fatigue is not perceptible on Bernard's side, it will end up reflecting in the timing. And when we're talking about the difference between winning and losing being down to often tenths of a second or less, literally the difference between spending 2 hours setting the pit setup up can literally make the difference between winning and losing a World Cup. Now, this is partly ironically why we love Bernard Kerr, is he is that hands-on, scrappy, sort of worked from sort of irrelevant privateer to one of the biggest names in the sport. He's got a big social media following because he is that sort of one-man dude that is pretty much responsible for a lot of what happens on the team. But when it comes to his desire, and he does have a burning desire to win a World Cup, that is, in the world of downhill, the tip of the spear. Once you win a World Cup, you are in the history books. Not to say he's not already in the history books, but you are the unquestionable, legitimate, fastest dude on the planet that day. That is really cool. And there's not very many other races that you can truly lay claim to that title. So this is just an interesting challenge that I do think Bernard Kerr has to ask himself, is if he really wants to go after that win, to get the opportunity to win a World Cup, not only for himself, but for Pivot. I don't know if they've ever won a World Cup. He might want to think about taking a back seat and reducing the workload, because this stuff has a just fundamental impact on your race day performance. And there's no getting around it. It might not even be perceivable, but when you race against someone like Loic Bruni or Jackson or any of these top riders that are on fully catered factory teams, not to mention the engineers that they have on staff that I'm quite confident Pivot does not have on hand, it's just a very challenging hurdle to overcome. And when it comes to World Cups where you got hundreds of guys trying to qualify, and ultimately, I think they changed the finals, but pretty much you got 40, 50, 60 of the fastest guys on the planet separated by fractions of a second, and every little thing you do or don't do makes a difference. And I believe Bernard Kerr has the speed to win a World Cup. He's more consistent than he's ever been, but he's doing it with 10 times the workload of any other rider. So it would be curious to see, just for a year or 2 years, for him to really buckle down and go, I want to win a World Cup before I retire. Once I win a World Cup, do whatever he wants to do. He's obviously got a great media following. He's a great personality. There's lots of races that aren't quite as difficult to win, but it would be fun to see him just commit to really reducing the time spent on the weekend dealing with the busy work and the chores and everything, and just focusing on beating the best riders in the world, because that's what it takes. You can't be overcommitted and have your attention focused on all these different things. You have got to approach it with 200% commitment on racing, not racing and figuring out the hotel accommodations and everything else. So this is why, in my opinion, there is just one remaining change that Bernard Kerr could try to implement to finally get that win. Even if he doesn't, it's not a big deal. We like tuning in because of the personality, because of the story, because we get this fun behind the scenes look at a team. He's got great teammates. Ed Masters is awesome. So it's a great story, regardless whether he does or doesn't win a World Cup. He might win Hardline tonight. That is on the table. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree? Disagree? Do you like tuning into Bernard Kerr? He's got great videos behind the scenes. And man, could he do it at Hardline? This would be, I believe he's won 2 Hardline events, but I'm rooting for him. It's a great story. I want to see Chris Kokalis, I believe you pronounce it, get a win for Pivot. I don't believe they've ever had a World Cup win, at least not that since I've been paying attention. But let me know what you think and hope you enjoy the video.